Most men believe attraction is something you earn by effort. If you text more, care more, listen more, and show up more consistently, interest should logically increase. This belief feels reasonable because it mirrors how effort works in work, fitness, and skill building. But attraction does not obey the same rules. In fact, it often moves in the opposite direction. The more you chase interest, the more it slips away. The more available you become, the less valuable your presence feels. This video is built around a core psychological truth most men learn too late. You cannot force someone to miss you, but you can create the conditions where missing you happens involuntarily. Missing someone is not a conscious decision. A woman does not wake up and choose to crave your presence. That feeling emerges when the brain detects contrast, absence, and emotional scarcity. When something is always available, the mind categorizes it as background. When something disappears unexpectedly, the mind flags it as important. This is not manipulation, it is how human attention works. Scarcity sharpens focus, abundance dulls it. And in modern dating, attention is the most oversupplied resource on the planet. The paradox most men struggle with is this: giving more attention feels like love, but it often communicates low value. Giving less feels risky, but it creates space for curiosity, imagination, and emotional engagement. When you are constantly present, she never has to think about you. When you step back correctly, her mind fills in the silence for you. That silence becomes louder than any text you could send. Right now, if she does not miss you, it is not because you lack worth, depth, or potential. It is because your presence carries no cost. You are available without effort, predictable without tension, safe without intrigue. And the human brain is wired to ignore what feels guaranteed. This is why being nice, reliable, and emotionally available does not automatically translate into desire. Respect and attraction are built on perceived value, not kindness alone. This content is not about playing games or pretending not to care. It is about reclaiming your position in your own life. When you stop centering your behavior around getting a reaction from her, something powerful happens. You stop trying to be chosen and start becoming someone who is felt when absent. And that shift changes everything, regardless of whether she comes back or not. To understand how to create that shift, we first need to look honestly at why she isn't missing you now, and why effort alone is quietly working against you. If she is not missing you right now, it is rarely because you did something obviously wrong. Most men in this position were not careless, disrespectful, or emotionally unavailable. They were often the opposite. They tried harder. They checked in more. They responded faster. They made themselves useful, supportive, and consistently present. And without realizing it, they removed every psychological reason for her to feel emotional contrast when they were gone. In a world where women receive constant attention, your effort does not exist in isolation. It is compared, filtered, and sorted by the brain alongside hundreds of other signals. Likes, replies, compliments, and messages arrive daily, often from men who expect nothing and offer everything. When your attention is always there, it blends into that noise. It does not stand out because it costs her nothing. There is no gap between presence and absence, so there is nothing to feel. Human desire is not triggered by abundance. It is triggered by rarity. The mind instinctively values what is limited, not what is overflowing. When you are overly available, you unintentionally confirm a silent narrative in her head that you have little else competing for your focus, not because you are boring, but because your behavior communicates that she is the center of your attention before she has earned that position emotionally. That imbalance erodes romantic tension. Many men mistake indifference for rejection of their identity. They assume, if I were taller, richer, more confident, she would care. But indifference is often situational, not personal. It arises when there is no contrast to wake up the nervous system, no mystery, no sense of potential loss. When nothing changes, whether you are present or gone. The brain conserves energy by ignoring you. This is not cruelty. It is efficiency. Craving requires a void, and a void cannot exist if you are always filling it preemptively. Each extra message, each unnecessary check-in, each moment of availability without invitation quietly reinforces the same conclusion: your presence is predictable and replaceable. Again, not because you are replaceable as a man, but because your attention has become common. Understanding this is uncomfortable, because it challenges everything men are taught about being chosen. But once you see it clearly, you stop taking her lack of missing as a verdict on your worth. You start seeing it as a signal problem, not a value problem. And that realization opens the door to the only strategy that actually works, changing the signal itself. In the next part, we will break down the core strategy that flips indifference into curiosity, not by chasing harder, but by stepping back with intention and strength. The moment you understand that desire is shaped by absence, the strategy becomes clear. But most men still execute it incorrectly. They disappear emotionally, but not structurally. They withdraw out of frustration, hoping silence will punish or provoke a reaction. That approach rarely works because the absence feels empty. An empty absence communicates loss of control, not value. What creates missing is not vanishing alone, but vanishing while your life continues to move forward with visible momentum. The goal is not to make her anxious or confused. The goal is to shift her internal experience of you. Right now, you occupy a predictable mental slot. You are known, accessible, and emotionally categorized. To change that, you must create a noticeable void that the brain cannot immediately resolve. When your presence disappears without drama, explanation, or hostility, the mind searches for meaning. Human psychology is deeply uncomfortable with unfinished patterns. When something familiar stops appearing, awareness spikes. This is where absence becomes powerful. Absence creates contrast. Contrast creates curiosity. Curiosity reopens emotional processing. But this only works if the absence is calm, mature, and self-directed. No passive-aggressive posts, no emotional withdrawal messages, no announcements about focusing on myself. Silence that is explained loses its impact. Silence that is lived communicates confidence. At the same time, absence must be filled with substance. If you vanish and your life looks stagnant, the void collapses. The mind quickly concludes there is nothing there to miss. But when your absence is paired with visible growth, the signal changes. She begins to register two quiet thoughts she cannot control. The first is that you are fine without her. The second is uncertainty about what and who now occupies your attention. That uncertainty is the seed of intrigue. This is not about pretending to be busy. It is about actually redirecting your energy into areas that strengthen your identity. Training your body, expanding your social world, learning new skills, creating experiences that give you stories, confidence, and emotional depth. These changes radiate outward whether she notices or not. And that is precisely why they work. The power is not in getting her reaction, but in no longer needing it. When you build a life that feels full, your absence stops feeling like retreat and starts feeling like elevation. You are no longer stepping back to be noticed. You are stepping forward, and her awareness struggles to catch up. This is the foundation that makes every next move effective. In the next part, we will get specific about the first concrete step, how to disappear from her front row without burning bridges or lowering your self-respect. The first visible shift begins with removing yourself from her front row. This does not mean cutting her off dramatically or trying to provoke emotion. It means quietly exiting the position where you are constantly seen, heard, and emotionally accessible. No more daily texts, no more automatic likes, no more instant replies, story views, or being available as a backup plan when she is bored, lonely, or unsure. You are not punishing her. You are simply reclaiming your time and attention. What makes this step powerful is its subtlety. In the digital age, patterns are everything. Notifications, reactions, and presence create a rhythm the brain gets used to. When that rhythm stops without explanation, it creates a pattern interrupt. The mind notices even if the person claims not to care. This is why online disappearance is often more impactful than physical distance. The absence is quiet, but it is constantly reinforced by what does not happen. The critical rule here is emotional neutrality. No anger, no coldness, no bitterness. You do not announce that you are stepping back. You do not block her in a dramatic gesture. You do not unfollow her to make a statement unless doing so is necessary for your own emotional discipline. The more mature and unreactive your withdrawal feels, the more it communicates inner stability. Stability is rare, and rarity draws attention. Many men sabotage this step by checking in one last time or leaving breadcrumbs so they are not forgotten. That defeats the purpose. If you remain partially present, the brain never registers a void. You must allow the space to exist long enough for it to be felt. This requires restraint, not confidence theater. True confidence is quiet. It does not need to be seen to be real. Another common mistake is disappearing while emotionally watching, obsessively checking her activity, reading meaning into every post, and waiting for signs of regret keeps you psychologically stuck in the same position. Even if she does not know you are watching, your energy remains invested. The goal is not to make her feel your absence. It is to live as though your attention has moved on to things that matter more. When done correctly, this step produces a subtle shift. She may not reach out immediately. She may say nothing at all. But internally, something changes. Your presence is no longer guaranteed. The certainty she had dissolves, and the brain begins to revisit old impressions with new curiosity. Not because you demanded attention, but because you removed it. This step sets the stage, but it is only effective if what replaces that space is meaningful. In the next part, we will explore how to build a full, visible life during your absence so that when she notices the gap, what fills it is growth, momentum, and quiet confidence. Absence by itself is only half of the equation. If you remove yourself and nothing replaces that space, the mind quickly adapts and moves on. What creates real emotional pull is the combination of distance and visible forward motion. During this period, your life must look and feel fuller than before, not as a performance, but as a natural outcome of reclaimed energy. When you stop orbiting around one person, you free up attention for areas that often get neglected. Friendships deepen. Your body responds to consistent training. Your schedule gains structure. New environments and experiences reintroduce novelty into your nervous system. This internal shift changes your posture. your tone, and your emotional presence long before anyone sees a photo. And when it does become visible, it communicates something powerful. Without words, you are moving forward. Visibility matters because humans are visual processors. A completely invisible absence can sometimes be interpreted as retreat. But selective visibility reframes the narrative. Posting occasionally, not excessively, shows evidence of life, not proof of interest. A new picture, a different setting, genuine energy. Nothing staged, nothing directed at her. These signals trigger two thoughts that are difficult to suppress. The first is the realization that you are genuinely okay without her. The second is uncertainty about where your attention is now going. This uncertainty is not about jealousy in a toxic sense. It is about contrast. When you were always present, there was nothing to compare. Now there is. Your life contains people, movement, and experiences she does not have full access to. That lack of access reintroduces value. Social proof amplifies this effect naturally. Being seen around others, including women, communicates desirability without explanation. The key is authenticity. Forced displays backfire because the brain senses performance. Real connections feel different, feel beyond visuals. Emotional depth matters. Before or during early interactions, men who leave a lasting imprint often provide something rare, mental stimulation, a perspective that reframes how she sees the world, a curiosity that expands conversations beyond the surface, a skill, insight, or way of thinking that cannot be easily replaced. When absence removes access to that stimulation, the mind revisits it repeatedly. She does not just miss your presence. She misses how she felt thinking with you. Memory triggers strengthen this effect. Songs you shared, phrases only you used, subtle references tied to specific moments. These resurface naturally in daily life and quietly reconnect her emotional experience to you. You do not need to manufacture them. You only need to have been memorable in how you showed up. Once absence and growth have had time to register, the final step becomes possible. In the next part, we will discuss how and when to re-emerge without undoing the entire process. Re-emergence is where most men lose everything they built. After weeks of restraint, the first sign of attention feels like validation, and instinct takes over. They reply too fast. They explain where they have been. They apologize for the distance or rush to reconnect emotionally. All of that collapses the tension that absence created. When you return, the frame must remain intact. Time matters. Absence needs long enough to register, but not so long that momentum fades. For most situations, 2 to 6 weeks is enough, depending on how frequent contact was before. The key signal is internal, not external. You should feel settled in your routine, grounded in your direction, and emotionally detached from needing a specific outcome. If you are still waiting for her reaction, you are not ready to return. If she reaches out first, resist the urge to respond immediately. Delay calmly, not strategically. Respond when it fits your life, not when anxiety demands it. Keep your tone warm but concise. No explanations, no references to the silence. You did not disappear from her life. You simply lived yours. That unspoken assumption preserves the new dynamic. If you are the one reinitiating, keep it light and grounded. A simple message. No emotional weight, no nostalgia, no fishing for reassurance. The man who reappears should feel like an upgraded version, not a returning applicant. Confidence shows in what you do not say. You are not there to prove value. You are there to express presence. What matters most is energy. Physical improvements, sharper focus, calmer eye contact. and reduced emotional urgency are felt instantly. Attraction is intuitive. She will register that something has changed before she can articulate it. And that perception matters more than any words you could choose. This moment is not about locking her in. It is about allowing space for her interest to surface naturally. If it does, you proceed slowly, letting her invest. If it does not, you do not chase. The outcome no longer defines you. That is the real shift. In the final part, we will tie everything together and reinforce why this approach is not about one woman, but about building a life where attraction becomes a byproduct of self-respect and direction. Attraction often dies not because a man lacks effort, but because he gives effort in the wrong direction. When interest fades, the instinct is to lean in, explain, reassure, and prove. Yet this instinct quietly destroys the very thing it is trying to protect. Desire does not grow through pressure. It grows in space. And space is created when a man values his time, attention, and direction enough to step back. What this process ultimately teaches is not how to make one woman miss you, but how to stop shrinking yourself for validation. When you remove your attention from someone who has not reciprocated it, you reclaim energy that was leaking away. That energy, when invested into your body, your work, your friendships, and your inner stability, changes how you show up everywhere. You become less reactive, less needy, more grounded, and paradoxically, more attractive. Whether she comes back is no longer the point, if she does. It happens because she feels the contrast between who you were and who you became. If she does not, you still win, because your life is no longer built around being chosen. You stop auditioning and start living. That shift alone places you in a different category of men. The deepest irony is that the moment you stop trying to be missed is often the moment you become unforgettable. Not because you vanished, but because you returned to yourself. You allowed absence to work, growth to speak, and silence to communicate confidence. You replaced constant availability with quiet value. This approach requires discipline. It requires emotional control when instinct urges you to reach out. But what it gives in return is far greater than attention from one person. It gives you self-respect, clarity, and a life that feels solid regardless of who is watching. If you are committed to building that kind of value, type value in the comments. If this perspective resonated, like the video and subscribe for more content that helps you navigate attraction with strength and awareness.